Hi everyone, my name's Sasha Sykes and I have a business called Farm 21 and I make artworks, furniture and lighting from a contemporary rural standpoint. I've been doing this since 2001 and it's developed over the years. I started out with three main product areas which were acrylic encased functional objects like this cube, which had mosses and straws and lavenders and agricultural materials in them for tables and objects. I had a second product which I did for a short while was roller blinds using digital printed rural scenes, quite short-lived. And the third product I focused on was timber benches using locally sourced hardwoods, and I engraved them with lyrics. So I started with these three products back in 2001. I started between London and Carlow, and I had a bit of luck with some early press. I was picked up by one of the Saturday magazines over in the UK. The Saturday Telegraph magazine did a big piece on my work. And it just went mad really quickly. And before I knew it, I was doing one of the big design shows, the 100% design show in Earl's Court, before I'd really found my feet. But it was a good way to start, I suppose, being thrown in at the deep end. So these days I've been working from London. I worked in New York, and I'm back in Carlow, and it's sort of probably 4 years in each place, and over the time, my focus has changed a lot. From the start, the business was all about design, and I outsourced all the work. So I literally just sent off my drawings, and other people did the work. And it's come back to me now, I suppose, because I have more space and I have a studio, that I've gone the other way to most people, and I'm now making most of the stuff myself. So I do all sorts of different products now. I have lots of like full range of furniture items that I develop. Usually I'll start out with a concept that might be more of an artistic concept, where I'll take like a subject like agriculture and I'll work out a range of products from that will be furniture products essentially, but they might start from a more creative point. So the cube, for example, with the straw was, I didn't really see it as a table. I saw it as more as an object. But from this, I developed more furniture pieces like a screen made with rye straw, lamps with grain, outdoor tables, feeder tables with grain, different products using agricultural produce. But most of them would start with a sort of a concept that might be an artistic concept. So other projects I've done over the last few years have used gorse. I've just done a recent project with gorse, again using gorse as the initial starting point with these kind of objects, which I call my gorse weapons, because they're sort of between something beautiful on a bedside table and something that might be used in a murder mystery to kill the suspect. And then from this, I've also developed furniture pieces like chest of drawers, lamps, all this kind of stuff. So materials is really what I'm about, and it's interesting. It's really interesting hearing all about your use of technology. Because Susan was, when you asked me to talk, we were going to talk a bit about the work I did with the guys at the Carlow IT. Coming back to a much more craft point that I'm at now, perhaps, than I was when I started out, where it was a lot more design focus, as in I did the design and handed over. It's a lot more craft focus these days. And a lot of my work speaks about the locality, which I feel is my take on craft, I suppose. And when you're thinking about craft and how to move it forward from the post-industrial age, I think you've got to have your tie to your locality, and you've got to speak of something of your locality. And for me, that's about the materials of our locality. But yeah, so I've worked with all sorts of materials, and I suppose in the last 2 years particularly, I've been exploring hands-on with materials. And I wrote down the list of materials I've worked with in the last 2 years, which is all sorts of timbers, local hardwoods, softwoods, MDF, plywood, all the timbers. Resins, I do a lot of work with resins, polyesters, epoxies, been experimenting with bioresins, then acrylics, polycarbonates, polyethylenes, silicones, carbon fibers, foam PVCs, rubber, neoprene, then glass and paper, and then all the natural material that I find and I put into my resins as well. But when the guys from Carlo IT called up, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with the project they ran, the Design Core project they ran, which was just a brilliant opportunity to go in and use their incredible technology, which you're familiar with. But for someone who's had their head down in a workshop, it's just mind-blowing, and it's really hard to get from the hands-on to the sort of cerebral stuff, and trying to get your head around the technology and how to apply it to your craft, and how to apply it in a useful and productive manner was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. When you get over the initial excitement of what you can create with all their stuff. So I had been working on some sculptures that I'd taken from a teapot. It was an Indian mid-19th century teapot, and I'd made silicone molds and done clear castings of it, and it looked very pretty and it was nice, but I wanted to kind of further it. So I talked to Darren at the college about maybe using this as the basis for one of the projects we'd work on together. And we decided we'd make a light using acrylic and laser etching it. So it wasn't using the 3D printers, which would have been amazing to kind of go down that road. But to be honest, I just found, I had 3 months to work on it, and I found it so hard to know how to use it and make the most of it. And my stuff is kind of bigger than jewelry and everything else. So you want to be pretty sure of what you're doing, because it's expensive. The materials are very expensive. So we started with this teapot, and he said, "Okay, bring it in, and we'll do we'll 3D scan it." So they put the 3D scanner, which sounds really technical, but actually it's just a camera that takes the 4 angles on the top, and then it translates it over to the modeling program. And then we used that model that we built of the teapot, and we took slices of it every 3 millimeters up through the teapot. And then we etched this onto the acrylic sheets, which we underlit as a lamp. And I don't know if anyone saw it in Asia, but it was a really fun piece, and it was a great experiment. And like you were saying earlier, it's a brilliant way of being able to do repeats of things, because it's so it's really hard work when you're crafting away to every piece it's great, and it's great to put yourself into every piece, but it's quite it's quite exciting, the idea of being able to put out multiples of your piece, which still has your stamp on it because it's your design, I suppose. They also helped me with a more using their SolidWorks, which is the other side of it, I suppose, all their programming and modelling, which a lot of us who work in craft maybe don't have great skills with. And I had a job where I'd been asked to make a front of a desk for an office in Dublin, and I wanted to be able to make the most out of cutting out of a sheet, so that I'd cut splines out of a sheet and there'd be no waste, so I could have the reverse of every cut and use it. And I couldn't figure out how to do this and plan ahead, so Darren said he'd make a model of it, which, if I can show the end result somewhere here. Where is it? No, sorry. I'll bring it up in a second. But it was a very interesting process, He made the model and we tweaked it and I was able to look at it, and he offered to make a 3D printout of it, but it was actually great. You didn't need it because it was brilliant in the SolidWorks, and it was so realistic that when he superimposed it into the photograph that I had of the office, it looked like it had been there forever. It was amazing. So it was a great way to use technology to help you in your craft. So I found that incredibly useful. So in terms of how, where are we now? So I think we're going to talk a bit about the business model that I work under. I don't know if it's just going away from materials a little bit, but in terms of how to sell craft and in this day and age, one of the challenges I'm really having is that obviously everything is becoming more and more web-based in purchasing, and it's quite difficult for me to package my material. I have to crate everything, so I'm having real challenges with that, and it's actually changing what I'm looking at designing, because I'm definitely bringing my products down in size and making them more easier to send with customers all over the world. And so at the moment, most of my stuff I make to order directly from me, and people do buy over the web when they can see stuff, but it is difficult when you're ordering bespoke stuff. So I'll usually do an exhibition here in Ireland, and then I'll do an exhibition in London once a year, and that's where I take most of my orders, and that's where I'll get most of my commissions from still. But I'm definitely working towards products that are, that can be sent out much more easily and are available over the web, because I think that's probably the future for craft and the way we sell craft. It's going global.